comes from Bonnie Kerr. She says, I once worked at a nursery here in Scotland that was haunted. The children would see things and describe the same people that they would see. And by the way, they would turn their heads and look in certain directions. You could tell that children were not lying. I took my parents to the same nursery, and when they came to visit me to show them where I worked, I and my mum witnessed a woman's arm opening the back door of the nursery into the garden. But when I went to see who was there, I shut the door because no one was in the back garden. My mum freaked out because she thought I was being rude to a co-worker and asked me why I shut the door. I opened the door and she immediately wanted to get away from the door. And she said she'd seen the person's arm opening the door. I have experienced different things throughout my life. Spirits of loved ones do carry on and stay with us. I have seen my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather in a mirror. I've also seen ghost cats in my home here in Edinburgh, and my cats play with them also. And I've heard and smelled different things in my life. So I believe that we can all, we can all go on, although we sort of leave our body and shell behind, if you will. But like Rachel, I'm still searching for a sort of full thought on the whole belief for myself. That's why I'm so interested, and I've joined Scottish Paranormal, because the staff and people who work with you are very friendly and have taken me on as a person who's willing to learn more about the paranormal interests. Quite a long one there, and thank you very much indeed, Bonnie, for emailing in. 08454 107 107 is the number. I think you're all hanging on our every word, so we'd love to hear some of your ghost stories. We did touch on, basically, the role of a medium, before we sort of move on to the final sort of roundup of stories tonight, and a few that I can remember. Rachel, what is the power of a medium? And when I've sort of seen television, you don't know, is it if they're convincing actors or not? They come over and speak in different voices, etc., as the spirits affect them. Is that, you've got to sort of be semi sort of sceptical, I think, when you look at that. Is this somebody just acting the part, or is it for real?
I mean, obviously, we trust the mediums within our group 100%, you know, because there's been episodes where somebody's picked up one piece of information, they've been off in a different group, and another medium has come in to the same room after them and picked up the same information. So obviously when we have correlated information there, that obviously kind of backs up what they're saying. I think you've got to be careful when it comes to channeling, which is when people become apparently possessed by spirits. They talk in different voices, and I think that's something that a medium really has to be 100% confident in doing. And I think any good medium would be in control of the situation 100%. So when you see people shaking and screaming and crying out and things like that, I'm slightly more dubious about that, because technically it shouldn't happen. But obviously this is just a personal opinion.
The other thing was that we mentioned earlier on about animals, and a story that was told to me many, many years ago by somebody was, I mean, this was way back in the 60s, when it actually, the event took place, maybe even slightly before that actually, was his cat. He was sitting in the lounge one night in his mother's house, reading his newspaper. No television in those days, or not in the abundance it is today. And his cat got up, with all the hairs standing on its back, its tail, and it walked round in a circle. And then it sat down. And yet there was not a sound. He checked the house. There was nothing there at all. He didn't pick up any presents, but the animal did. Is that something that we can often... I mean, they often say that animals can determine if there's bad weather on the way, if there's a storm, etc. Are animals more receptive to picking up the powers of spirits?
I do believe they are. Like I mentioned before, the episode I had with my cat, he done the exact same thing, really. He started walking backwards and hissing, and I didn't hang about long enough to find out what happened after that. But I do believe that the dogs and cats, I've heard so many stories that they do seem to pick up in presences in rooms, or something's not right in the environment, and that they're picking up on this.
I think there's a certain element as well. It's the same as with children as well. You tend to, I mean, Bonnie mentioned there that children in our nursery were seeing, and I think there's a certain element there of, as you grow older, you're told really, oh, well, you know, that can't be real, it can't be true. Whereas if you're a child, you have a more open mind, and I suppose an animal as well is just reacting on instinct. And I think that's the key when it comes to animals picking up on activity, definitely.
08454 107 107 is the number to call us on. Text us on 8181, start your text with the word talk, they cost 25 pence, and you can also email us at studio@talk107.co.uk. It's Alex Hastie with you live until 1am, which will miraculously, spookily even, become 2am, because it's British summertime. Now, we were talking about some ghost stories, and one that stands out in my head, and time can be a bit of a liar, basically, was a story told by the late Telly Savalas, he of Kojak fame. And that was, he had been driving on a highway when his car had taken a flat tire. Another car stopped on the highway, picked him up, and took him to the nearest garage. He then got the tire fixed, and they came back to the car. And just as a matter of conversation, he had sat in the back of this car and chatted to the person. It was a man that was driving the car. Nothing untoward, no feelings of hesitancy, nothing spooky at all. He then went back to the car, and they exchanged addresses, and he said, look, if I'm ever in your area, I want to come and see you and repay you for your kindness tonight. When he eventually did go round to the house, he was confronted with a lady who opened the door, and he said, you know, I just want to thank you very much. Your husband stopped by about 2 weeks ago, helped me fix the tire that had gone flat, and said, you know, if I was in the area, I'd pop round. She was very surprised and sort of said, my husband's been dead for over 10 years, and the accident had happened on the highway that night, or of an evening, in the car that he had described. The man he described